Okay, so we have your book in the lobby, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's sold a trillion copies, multiple reprints.
Probably not a trillion, but yeah.
A lot. And you're an expert in making tough decisions in business, helping others navigate those moments that matter. I would say Washington is going through just an incredible moment of transformation. So I want to start talking about leadership. And let me first start with some founders. You had Ali up here earlier today. You have other founders in your portfolio, Ariel from Navan, who was like a tank commander. You have these very, very special founders. So what is it about these founders that really makes you believe that they were going to create great companies?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to like the CEO job and like what is that, and why is it difficult? And so the way to think about it is, okay, you invent something. It's something the world may want. So now you start a company. You hire every person you know that you think is good and kind of respect. You raise money from people. You go sign up customers. The customers depend on you to succeed. So a lot of pressure, but you don't actually know what you're doing. You've never been a CEO. You've never run a big organization. And so you get yourself into these situations where, maybe that executive isn't good enough, or maybe like the product architecture needs to be reworked and so forth. And everybody's depending on you. All you do is work, so you don't have any life outside of this. So your life is basically over if this company fails. And you don't know that that's the right thing to do. You only think it, and then you have people around you telling you, no, it's not the right thing to do. So how do you kind of trust your eyes, trust what you think, and go do it? It's a very difficult problem, and that's where basically I see CEOs fail all the time, is in that hesitation between, okay, I see it, but I can't act on it because there's just too much scary stuff between me and that. And the advantage you have with Ali or Ariel is they understand the value of urgency and the danger of hesitation. You heard Ali's story, like he hesitated, like one more hour, like he's probably dead. Yep. And he lives his whole life with that in his mind. And Ariel as a tank commander also gets that. So even though they kind of had that same situation, same problem, they got through the hesitation problem faster because they're like, well, look, there's the cost of action, but the cost of inaction is so intense that like I know I have to make a move. And so that's why those those backgrounds are at least helpful in learning how to be a CEO.
And do you think that...
And you know this from your days as CEO.
This is true.
Yeah.
Do you think that with all the people coming into Washington who are not traditional Washington insiders, are they going to be able to bring that kind of an approach? Or you think we're going to have the brick wall experience where they run into the bureaucracy? Because I don't think we've seen really a moment in Washington in a long time where we've had this many people that are not career bureaucrats coming into administrative roles, presidential appointed positions.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A lot of people from our firm are in Washington now. I think that culture can change fast, and there's always, anytime there's change in any organization, the antibodies come out. And then the question is like, what force is stronger? Is the force of the new direction stronger, or are the antibodies stronger? And I think that, particularly in the case of the White House and the administration, because Trump was president before, I think their experience that time in talking to Jared and talking to the president was, well, we didn't go hard enough. We kind of were too deferential to the system, which is probably a shock to a lot of people because they're like, they were deferential. But they were in term one much more than they are in term two. So I think change is going to happen at a pretty fast rate. I mean, we'll see where it goes, and how positive the change is still TBD. But they're definitely going for it.
Absolutely. I got to be careful how I ask this question, because I think General Fenton's still listening to what I'm saying. So I do want to talk about DoD and culture and change, because you are both a student of organizational culture, but you are also a teacher of how to change culture and how to create the culture that you want and what culture really is. So, we know that the DoD now is trying to really reassess how do they set themselves up for the next 100 years? What do they want culture to be?
Yeah.
How would you advise the DoD to think about changing their culture and how to think about culture and what it really means?
Yeah, so my favorite kind of definition of culture comes from the samurai, which is, culture is not a set of beliefs. It's a set of actions. And I think if you think of it through that lens, it's like, okay, what do we do on a daily basis that kind of constitutes the culture and how we operate and how we think about things and so forth. And I think that, the bad thing that's happened to the culture in the DoD is it's become kind of, politically and bureaucratically driven as opposed to mission driven. That's the complaint, at least, that I hear all the time is, wow, we used to be about winning, now we're about like everything else. And to change culture, probably the best story of culture change that I ever read about as I studied it was the story of the Haitian Revolution, where Toussaint Louverture, it was the only successful slave revolt that resulted in an independent state in the history of humanity. So like a very rare event. And the reason it was so rare is that slave culture is not military culture. It's the opposite in that if you're a slave, there's no tomorrow. You don't own tomorrow. You don't own anything. So long-term planning and kind of strategy and trust in particular comes from that long-term thinking, right? I'm going to do something for you today, David, because I trust that in a month from now, you'll do something for me. Well, like, what if there is no month from now? Then there's no trust. So you have this low trust, very kind of difficult culture to build an army against, and so there were no successful slave revolts. Tell Toussaint, how did he do it? Well, he shocked the culture into a new culture. And he did it in kind of several ways. And I'll just give you two examples, which I think are probably relevant for the DoD. One is like, let me just make a rule that shows you yesterday has nothing to do with today. And one of the rules that he made, which is, and this is, Haiti in the 1790s, so it's raping and pillaging and like a very kind of aggressive mercenary type of warfare. And he just made the rule, look, officers in my army can't cheat on their wives, otherwise you're dismissed. No concubines, no none of that. And everybody was completely shocked because it's just so antithetical to the culture that was running. And his point was, look, I have to be able to trust you. And if your wife can't trust you, then like, how am I going to trust you? And it was just a very simple rule that indicated this is where we're going. Trust is the most important thing in the Army, and that's the one thing I'm going to dismiss you on. Second thing he did was he changed out a lot of the leadership for the guys he captured. So he would capture kind of generals from the French Army, from the Spanish Army, from the British Army, and he would put them in officer positions. So he brought in the culture of the enemy military to refine the thing. And I think that, not necessarily that we would bring in a Chinese general to the DoD or something like that, but just bringing in leadership from a different culture, from the culture you want, and adopting that into your own are kind of two mechanics that I think, at least historically, were very, very effective. And he ended up building, quite an astonishing, like if you look at kind of the history of military strategy, like a lot of the things they did were super novel because he was able to mix techniques from different fighting forces.
Awesome. Let's talk about the firm for just a minute here. I think people know, because they're here at this event, that we are not a small boutique 4 or 5 person shop.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So, you and Mark have always had this view toward, orienting the firm toward the future, really building the infrastructure that serves the best founders. And, we've had lots of conversations, and we certainly see in the news about how the government's focused on slimming down and efficiency and things. But you didn't take that path with Andreessen Horowitz. We are, I think we're the largest venture capital firm in the world.
Are you saying we're inefficient?
No, but we're not small.
Yeah.
And I think we are the largest venture capital firm in the world. Is that?
Yeah.
I think that's right. So tell us, like, how you think about, when you and Mark were starting the firm, and even up to today. How did you decide to build this massive platform with hundreds of people? We'll talk about how we have a DC office here in just a minute. Mm-hmm. But you were doing things that no other venture capital firm has ever done. Most people, if you don't know how our industry works, it's usually like 5 or 6 people that sit at a table and just kind of wait for deals to show up to them and talk about deals. And maybe they do this deal, maybe they go play golf. But that's not exactly how it works at Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, so, it's funny, coming from being an entrepreneur, there were kind of 2 things that were different about how we thought about it. The first was, we're just kind of naturally mission-oriented, as opposed to just purely kind of money or return-oriented, which turned out to be unique in venture capital. I didn't know that when we started, but it turned out to be that way. And our mission was always, we thought that every important new company was going to be a tech company, and the way those tech companies were going to get built was going to be really, really important, and we needed to kind of help build the best companies in the world, kind of in Silicon Valley, in America, and so we needed to set up for that. And the second idea that we had was the product of venture capital. They had 2 customers, investors. The product to investors was good, the returns were high, but the product to entrepreneurs was bad, and that all you got was some advice from a smart person and some money. Hopefully a smart person, but generally the venture capitalists are pretty smart people. And we thought, whoa, like having built a company, a much better product would be, help me know the people that I need to know, help me meet the people I need to meet, help me get confidence in myself to do this very difficult CEO job and all these kinds of things. And that just ended up creating a much bigger platform to go do that. And so that's sort of how we got to the idea. And look, I think it's, the core thesis turned out to be true. Like, tech has become extremely important. I think it's important to the survival of the country and certainly the thriving of the country. And so we find ourselves in a really important spot now.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's always been amazing. We have watched, Catherine and I talk about this all the time. Other firms, were investing in China and had all this other activity. And, now they might be a little bit Johnny-come-lately and like excited about defense. But they used to say, no way to defense, no way to those things. But you and Mark have always worked. Even from your Netscape, doing SSL and security days, you guys have always been very, very keen on supporting the national interest. And that's been something, you want to talk about that for just a minute?
Yeah, well, I think, and we got criticism for it early on, but, for me, and I think the talk that I gave at our all hands, I still would stand by, which is, look, you can say you don't want to, you've got some philosophical thing, you're against all violence and so forth, but like, you got to understand the people who are out there protecting us daily, whether they be in public safety, whether they be in the military and so forth, deserve the very best technology in the world. Like, they're out there risking their lives to save ours, and you want me to deny them the best technology so you can feel better about yourself. Like, I'm not doing that. And if you don't like that, you don't have to work here. And I say the same thing to the press when they come at us at it. And it's just, I think it's an unrealistic view of the world. And look, we have to stand on what we believe in and what our principles are. And, to this day, like, we're grateful to them. And by the way, we have, probably, close to 24 veterans working in our firm. And it would just be, it would feel very wrong to them for us to say, we're not going to invest in this tech because, it's for military purposes. That's crazy to me.
That's right. So look, this is our 3rd American Dynamism Summit. 3rd time you've been on stage. Thank you for that. And every time you've come back, our firm's presence in DC has grown. We do have an office here. It's just down the street.
Well, now we're involved in politics too.
Right. So, but you and Mark have said, look, you don't want to have to be here, but you have to be here. So, are we at the point now where tech just needs to be in DC for good? And what are we doing here? And what is the best way for tech to engage engage with the government?
Yeah, so I think there's no question that, look, in the early days of tech, when we started, when you started even, and you're much younger than me, we used to build tech products for tech people, right? Like we build a disk drive for somebody making a PC, or we build a network for people connecting computers, or, these were the products. And they didn't kind of come into the consciousness or kind of pervade the world really till the kind of mid-2000s when now here comes Google and Facebook, and now every consumer is all of a sudden using technology products. And then that started to affect, this is going to change the way the world works. This changes how people get their information. This is, everything is different, and this is how we educate people. And so naturally, that became a concern of Washington, D.C., because, this is the job of government to set policies and kind of help guide the way society works. So all of a sudden, they became intertwined, and I don't think there's any going back. I mean, I think we're becoming kind of more kind of technology-oriented society, and it's affecting everything from the military to education to healthcare to defense to anything the government cares about, like we care about. And so, the philosophy of our firm, one of our kind of maybe the most important kind of cultural underpinnings of the firm is we take a long view of relationships because we're in the relationship business. And what that really means is we're never going to be transactional because we expect to be here a long time, and we want to work with people who are also kind of working towards the long future. And so, we have to be in DC to explain ourselves. We're the biggest venture capital firm in the world. We know more about new companies and new technologies than, certainly almost anybody in the world. So it's important that we come here and say what we have to say, but it's also very, very important that we come and we listen to what the policymakers have to say and what they know from their constituents and so forth, and not just come in with an agenda. And that means having an office in DC, it means having, dedicated people and so forth. And that's never going to change. I mean, it was something I never wanted to do because politics is my family business. My father, my grandparents. So it's not, you never want to go into the family business if you're an entrepreneur. It's terrible. But I think we're stuck.
I think we're stuck. And it's great. And look, I think people know who work with us. We bring our founders to DC, and we have a whole team of people that sets up meetings, set up interactions with them. And if you're in the audience and you work in government and we haven't met with you and haven't brought founders to you, we certainly will. You can just reach out to us. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you brought up the politics things. We're in politics, so I think this is fair game. So actually, last night, I won't say which member of Congress, but and it wasn't Richie Torres who was up here on stage earlier.
Yeah.
But he reached out to me last night. We were out at a restaurant, and he said, "Hey, do you think we can get Ben back?" And I was like, what do you mean? Ben's here. And he said, no, the Democrats. Can we get Ben back? Yeah. And so, I think this member of Congress recognizes that a lot of people are disappointed with where the Democratic Party has shifted their focus, where they've landed on so many issues, even simple ones like what we think of startups and entrepreneurship and capitalism, maybe. So I'm going to ask you, what do the Democrats need to do? And not just for you, but all the people that think like you.
Yeah, so I think it kind of needs to, you have to go back to how'd they lose us? And I'll take me personally out of it for a second, but how'd they lose us as a firm? And it really, look, our role, everybody's got a role in society, and our role in society is kind of helping America win in technology, helping our companies win. That's what we're here for. That's why we built the firm. So the whole reason for us existing is to do this. And what happened to us in the Biden administration was just it was something that I'd never experienced in my career, and was both hard to understand and then impossible to negotiate out of. And so just to take you through it, if you just take one piece of technology, which is crypto, and it's like, okay, well, why do you care about crypto, Ben? Well, our job is to understand the future. It turns out that technologically, if you look at the history of technology has evolved along basically, information technology along two axes, kind of computers and networks. And they always go together. So, there was, microwave and the transistor, and then there was, the PC and local area, the mainframe and SNA and the PC and local area networks and the iPhone and the internet, or the smartphone and the internet and all those kinds of things. And now we have AI. And what's the networking technology that's necessary to make AI work for society? Well, what are the problems with AI? One, who's a robot and who's a human? Like, how do you tell? You're not going to be able to tell without basically crypto and blockchain, which already has a great proof of human technology, by the way, which was founded in the US, which is not allowed in the US or hadn't been allowed in the US. Secondly, you need to know what's real and what's fake. Who's going to be the arbiter of what's real and fake? Is it going to be Donald Trump, Joe Biden? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Meta? Or is it going to be the game theoretic mathematical properties of the blockchain? Very important problem. Thirdly, how are these AIs going to add value to society? How are they going to pay each other? How are they going to buy things? If I have a power wall and I have too much energy in it and I want to sell it to David, how does my power wall sell David energy? Well, turns out robots aren't allowed to have credit cards. The technology for that is crypto. So everything about an AI future, by the way, what does AI also do? It makes it very easy to break into things. So if consumers are forced to keep all of their data in the cloud, guess what's going to happen? They're just going to get raided and robbed all day long. What's the solution to that? Well, the solution to that is I shouldn't have to give up my bank account information to show I'm creditworthy. I should be able to deliver a zero knowledge proof. That's also crypto blockchain technology. So every piece of network infrastructure you need to make AI work is in this new technology that's invented. And the Biden administration did not pass any laws. They didn't even say anything out loud, but they would not take a meeting with us. Like, none of the people in charge of those agencies, Gary Gensler wouldn't meet with us, Elizabeth Warren wouldn't meet with, nobody, to even hear why we might need this technology. And so, we had no choice. We're like, America is going to lose the AI future entirely because the administration doesn't care, won't listen, is unwilling to go through any kind of process. And so we just defaulted to the other side. Like, it wasn't, and then I called Mark. I was like, Mark, let's call Jared. Let's see if we can get a meeting with Trump. Let's see what he says. And we went and met with him. He's like, no, I'm all for crypto. Let's do it. I'm for AI. America has to win, this and that and the other. We're like, okay. And that was it. And so to get us back, I think, a rational technology, just a technology policy that you're willing to explain, that you're willing to have a conversation about. Like, I'm not saying I won't understand it, but I don't even know why you did that to us. And so that's kind of what led to us, being in the spot we're in. And, as far as the firm's concerned, we don't speak on, I have opinions on everything from, Israel to Ukraine, Russia war to all that stuff, but I'm not the expert in it. But on tech policy, for startups, I'm as close to an expert as you can get. And the idea that my opinion has no value in that conversation and you're just going to do what you want to do, we just are never going to support that. And so that would be the way to kind of come back, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellently said. All right. We're going to shift to public safety.
Yeah.
I think that, I actually don't think people know. They might get a taste of it walking out in the hall out there and seeing some of the demos, but we are the largest public safety venture capital investors in the world. And you have, even before that really happened, you've been a huge supporter of law enforcement and public safety groups, and you've really turned Las Vegas into a test bed of the best and newest technologies for public safety. So what are you doing in Las Vegas, and how's it going?
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. So I kind of built a relationship with the Las Vegas police force, really because I've been very interested in this issue of policing because it's been a very tricky cultural problem in the U.S. I think there were a lot of things that led to the issues, and then the kind of backlash against the police, where we had these movements like defund the police and so forth, kind of vilified the job, which is, at least historically, a heroic job to kind of, provide public safety, to the point where like recruiting got very difficult and so forth, and the police forces degenerated. I think that, Las Vegas was interesting first because it had the highest murder solve rate in the country. 94% of murders get cleared in Las Vegas, and if you compare that, like San Francisco's like 75%, Chicago's in the 30s. And when I got into, okay, why is that? And it turns out it's very, very interesting. It's an expression of how good the community policing is, because when somebody gets murdered, it turns out somebody always knows who did it. And if you have a relationship with the community, then they will tell you. But if not, like, they don't tell the police anything. And so I think Chicago is really representative of that, where nobody's going to say who killed anybody. But in Las Vegas, the police always find out, and so they have a very high murder clearance rate. At the same time, it's a high crime city, partly because there's like crime. People will come from LA to commit crimes in Vegas, so there's a lot of crime. So a really
maybe like Tupac.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, the people that killed Tupac.
Yes, they did come from LA. We know
true.
that now. There's another long story about how we got the Tupac murder case reopened after 27 years. But I'm not going to get into that now. You can ask me afterwards. So it was a really good kind of test bed for public safety. So we've been deploying the technologies, and it's really been amazing. So we've deployed Prepared 911, Flock Safety, Skydio drones. And so basically, so the way to think about it is, if a gunshot goes off, or if an emergency call comes in, or if you kind of show up on a Flock Safety camera, and you've kidnapped a baby in your car or whatever, then there will be a drone deployed and on you in the high crime areas within 90 seconds. And so what's happened is, it's actually created a lot more safety for the suspects as well as for the police. And the reason is, turns out on the old technology is somebody calls in a crime and they say, hey, there's a black man in the alley with a shotgun. And it turns out, according to the police, every time that's never true. They go into the alley, it's a Mexican guy with a broom. But you've already created a very dangerous situation by saying that he's got a shotgun. But if you send a drone in ahead of time, you know who it is. If a car shows up on a Flock Safety camera, it's not, oh, that guy was driving a 1997 Honda Civic. It's this exact car. So you always have the exact right person. So you minimize the confrontations with people who shouldn't be confronted. You minimize the profiling of people who shouldn't be profiled, and you're able to solve these crimes. So technology's been really, really great for actual public safety. It gets criticized as, this surveillance and so forth, but it never gets deployed unless a crime is reported or a gunshot goes off or something happens. So it's not surveillance. And it's a great increase in public safety and a great decrease in kind of race-related incidents and these kinds of things that happen, because look, people get scared and they make stuff up and all that kind of thing.
I think people really don't appreciate how it really does make policing much more objective. And those communities that care about, that want to have a great relationship with the police, where they talk about, community policing, they're the biggest fans of this technology.
100%.
And we've just seen this in community.
Right, people who live in high crime areas never said defund.
Yeah, they always like it, right?
Yeah.
The people in high crime areas, they love it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They want it. It's all the people live in gated communities that send us
like,
nasty
no,
emails.
I've got my own police. I don't need.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Technology.
So look, Ben, thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this on extremely short notice. You've built an incredible industry-defining firm. and we certainly feel your ambition. Are excited to see what comes up in the next year and the years ahead.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.